right now. Can you tell me at what point in your life you started seeing a love for soccer begin? I mean, was it from a very young age? Did your parents get you involved? I mean, how did you get started?
Yeah, is this lighting okay with the
Yeah,
shadow?
yeah, you're good.
Great. Yeah, I was young. My brother, I have an older brother who's a year and a half older than me. And so I think my parents signed him up for soccer and then just signed me up. And I've actually done a lot of like analysis and talked to my parents a lot about like my who I am as a soccer player and how it all happened and stuff. And so my parents said, yeah, I mean, God had blessed me with a gift and a skill to play soccer and a love. But I played all sports growing up. I played basketball, baseball, ice hockey, actually, golf. I swam. I did it all. But soccer was really what I was most passionate about.
Furthermore, the midfield position is a bit of an anomaly on a soccer field in terms of your sheer lung capacity and the amount of miles that you run per game. That doesn't seem to line up particularly well with the other sports that you played. Was that an anomaly? Or was that kind of along the lines of things like hockey where you're skating constantly, or some of the other
Yeah.
sports that you tried?
Yeah, I think that they all help you. There's so much specialization in the world today, especially in youth sports. Kids, if they're, I don't know. It's just easy. Like they do one thing and they train all the time. But I think the overlap of sports and the different skills you, excuse me, the different skills you learn. Like I think, so baseball, for example, I was really good at baseball. So that was probably my second favorite sport, but my dad said it was just too slow for me. But really in baseball, you have to anticipate, you have to think ahead. So I think that helped me in soccer. In hockey, I was a very aggressive soccer player and I was a very aggressive hockey player. I always kid, like, I think I spent the majority of my time in the penalty box. But I totally think like the skills I learned on the hockey rink, correlated to my success on the field, and there's a lot of stats out there and I'm going to butcher it, but like 80%, 90% of NCAA football players are two sport athletes, growing up. So yeah, I was really glad I had that experience. I was really glad that my parents did that for me. And that's something that I'm going to try to do with my kids.
Yeah, for sure. Why the midfield?
So that's kind of where I could really play anywhere except goalie. I mean, I could play goal if I wanted to. I just probably wouldn't have been great at it. But, I grew up playing forward, center midfielder. And so, as I got older, I ended up dropping back into the center midfield. That tends to be where, especially in the youth, one of the best players plays. So it wasn't until college where I think a lot of it for me being the midfield was I did have the ability to run a lot, and work hard. And that was kind of my MO. And so I was going to play both sides of the ball. Right. And so midfield was just a good fit for me. I was fast, which was why I played forward a little bit, but yeah, I don't know. I think it was a good position because I like to be around the ball all the time. So
I'm going to back you up one step. How did you get to Wake Forest?
do you want the
And
long
how
answer?
old and how old were you when they began recruiting you?
Do you want the long answer or the short answer?
I'll take the long answer.
Okay. The short answer is by the grace of God. Seriously. So I grew up I'm a middle child. And so I'm very mischievous and I'm a rebel. I still am to this day. And my mom said, like, I just was always getting into things, just kind of wanted to grow up fast. And so when I was like 11, when I was like 12, 13, I started drinking. And and that kind of escalated pretty quickly for me. I thought that was cool. I wanted to kind of be cool, I wanted to fit in. And so by the time I was 16 years old, my life was so out of control. My parents knew they had to step in to save my life. I wasn't living at home. I was literally going to end up dead or in jail, because all I cared about was drinking and drugging, and hanging out with people I shouldn't have been hanging out with. I was living at my best friend's grandma's 2-story condo, and she didn't even know I was there because she never came upstairs. My parents tricked me to come home. They said, well, if you come home, we'll take you to get your license. I clearly wasn't thinking clearly. And so I came home in the middle of the night. My dad came in and he said, we love you, son. You're going to go away for a little while. Next thing I know, 2 big guys came in and they said, you need to get up. You're coming with us. And I said, do you know who I am? No, I'm kidding. I didn't say that, but, and I was like, screw you, F off, you know, and I thought I was a gangster. I really did. I thought I was Tupac, but white and really short with a bowl cut and a hemp necklace and rosy red cheeks, you know? And so I was, and so we kind of wrestled. They handcuffed me. They put clothes on me. They walked me down my front stairs, put me in the back of a tinted out black Tahoe. So I grew up in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And I think this was January. Yes, I believe it was January. And they drove me 12 hours handcuffed up to the middle of the Catskill Mountains in New York. And so I call it dumbass school. I don't know what the audience is of what we're doing right here, but I was that. I still am at times. It was a lockdown facility, a school for troubled kids, strategically placed in the middle of nowhere. So I spent a year and a half there. I really hated I didn't hate every day I was there, but I didn't like being there. I mean, I was there against my will. But it was one of the greatest things that ever happened to me. So needless to say, there was no colleges recruiting me at that school. And so I stayed there from 16 to 18. My parents knew I wanted to play college soccer. I was smart. Like I learned the system. I learned to, like, if I behave, I'll get out of here quicker, sort of thing. And so I got out of there, minimum stay 18 months. My parents brought me home. I grew up 5 minutes from Wake Forest campus. And so I knew the coaches and they had coached me growing up and stuff. And they started recruiting me my senior year. I ended up shattering my collarbone in 7 places. By the grace of God, I didn't have to have surgery, but I repeated my senior year back home. So essentially, you know, I had some offers from some smaller schools, decent schools, but I wasn't heavily recruited at all. I walked on to Wake Forest. So if you know anything about men's college soccer, their Wake Forest is like the best. So the ACC is the best, right? So I was competing against like Gatorade National Player of the Years, guys that literally captained our US U12, 13, 14, 15, 17 national teams, like the best of the best, right? And I was just kind of a scrub local kid that kind of walked in. And when I was drafted 4 years later, 5th overall, the coaches said, we thought you'd never play a day at Wake. And I said, gee, guys, thanks for the confidence, you know? But honestly, it was, you know, a lot of what I went through as a kid, I think really prepared me when I got to Wake. I knew what struggle was. I knew what challenge was. I knew what like believing in yourself was when no one else believed in you. And so I think those things set me up, where I saw a lot of guys that came in, they didn't have that. They didn't experience that. And they really struggled when they got to Wake.
Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah.
And then you had quite a career with the Demon Deacons. Want to go into that?
Yeah, I mean, it's was probably some of the greatest time in my life. I mean, it was a family. I loved it. It was awesome. They're a great program for a reason, because of the people that they have. Jay Vidovich has created a phenomenal just culture and family atmosphere, and Bobby Muse has taken over from that. So great people. You know, actually really excited just to get an education there. I didn't want to stay close to home. I really wanted to go far away from home. But the older I got, the more I appreciated it. My dad would come in the morning, wake up early and come and like sit on the hill and watch practices. You know, my family was there for all the home games and stuff. So yeah, I mean, I was fortunate. I ended up going in my freshman season and playing well, and getting some starts and exceeding expectations and just working really, really hard. I think that's what got me on the field. My sophomore year is a little bit of a struggle, but my junior year is really when I broke out. And so I led the team in goals and points, and made it to the Final Four my senior year. Unfortunately, didn't win it, but they won it the year after. It doesn't make me feel better that like I paved the way, but I'm really happy for those guys.
Can you talk about the experience of walking onto a team as historically dominant as Wake Forest men's soccer is?
Yeah,
And
I'm not sure.
how did that change your experience?
I'm not sure I was fully aware of what I was getting into. Like I knew that Wake was good, and this was kind of when they were coming into their dominant phase. I knew they were good, but I just knew that I could compete. I mean, it's like when you watch them when you're in high school. When you're in middle school and you're watching high schools, you're like, wow, they're good. I don't know if I can get there. Then you get there and you're like, man, I'm good. I'm actually better than these guys. And so I just remember that happening when I went to Wake. I was just like, man, I can fit in, I can compete. And I think it was a struggle, it was a challenge, like going in and, everyone's, high school All-Americans, and you're kind of like, not many people really know who you are. But I like that. That's actually kind of how I rolled my whole life. Like I never played ODP, Olympic Development Program. I tried out for years and years and never made it. And it's not like it didn't just make it, like I didn't even get close. So, again, that prepared me to go into, against all odds situation and rise to the top and thrive. But honestly, the truth is, by the grace of God, I mean, I look back on my life and I'm such a dumbass. I really am. Like I've screwed up so many times. I mean, at Wake, I should have been kicked out of school so many times and wasn't. Just had good people. I think it's really interesting when you tell your story. And I catch myself doing this. It can make it sound like it's just you. Like I did all this stuff. Look at me. I'm like, I did this. And it's like, man, I wouldn't be anywhere if it weren't for my parents, weren't for my family, like the coaches, my teammates, like the teachers at Wake. So I'm thankful for all those people in my life.
When you got your political science degree, did you ever intend to use it?
That's a great question. So I'm a rebel. I don't want to do what everybody else is doing. So when I went in to Wake, a lot of athletes were doing like communications majors. And I was like, I don't want to do that. So, I got in trouble my first year, and I was actually kicked out of semester my sophomore year. And so I couldn't get in. I didn't have the grades to get into the business school to be a business major. So I was like, I'll try econ. And that didn't work out so well. So my dad was a political science major and my brother was too. And I was like, I'll try political science. And so I liked it for like 2 weeks. I actually hate politics to this day. It's like makes my blood boil. I'm just not a fan. I don't ever want to talk about it. Don't watch the news. Don't watch CNN or Fox. I just don't like the word political. So no, I didn't think I'd like run for something. I didn't think that. I just thought it was interesting at the time and was like, I don't know what else I want to do, so I'll try it.
And then you're still not using it, are you?
No, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't even remember like anything I learned. I mean, don't ask me a political question because I will fail it, right? Like
I
I
do
don't.
not have a political question on this list, so we're gonna work on by that.
Good.
You also run ultras. Is that something that midfielders just kind of gravitate toward, or is that very individualized to you?
I never ran races growing up. Like I didn't run like 5Ks or 10Ks or any of that. I didn't run unless it was for punishment or for sport, really, or like I was training. But it wasn't long distances. It was like sprints. It was more interval work, shorter distances. And so when I retired, I was looking for a way to fill the competitive void. And so I signed up with my wife and some friends for a Tough Mudder. And so I thought I got like the earliest time because I wanted to try to compete, and do well, whatever. But I didn't. And I realized that there was another time before me that you had to pay, and they were like competitors, like real competitors. And so like towards the end of the race, I started passing all these guys with these green bibs, and they were like, wow, you didn't start with us. Like, wow, you're killing it. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Well, anyway, I ended up finishing like top 3. But I didn't get the thing. Like if you match my time up with the bibs time, like I would have finished top 3, but because I didn't run with them and register with them, I didn't get accounted for that. So I was like, wow, maybe I should, try this. And so just kind of fate. I was in the library the week after, and I was looking at like a local magazine, and it said in 3 weeks, there's a 50K and a 50 miler in Charlotte. And I was like, babe, I'm gonna sign up. Is that cool? And so 50K is 32 miles, something like that. It's on trail. So it usually takes a lot longer than running on road and a marathon. So I went, and I didn't carry any water with me because I didn't want to like run with, I wanted to run unencumbered, like my wife is like, what are you doing, man? Like you have to have water. You're gonna be out there running for hours and hours. So I ended up cramping real bad, and it wasn't fun. I'm really actually proud of myself. People had stashed water on the side of the trail, and I thought about stealing it so many times because I needed it, but I didn't do it. I'm really proud of myself for that. So, so that was fun. It was challenging. I'm a very physical human being. So I'm used to being a pro athlete, obviously you learn a lot of skills that allows you to go to places that, a lot of people don't want to go, right? You can push past your limiting beliefs and stuff. And so I'm sorry about that.
You're good.
I'm trying to turn this off real quick. Do not disturb. Okay, cool. And so I was like, that's cool. I'm going to try to run a little bit farther next time. So I did a 50 miler. And then I did 100K, which is 64 miles. And then during COVID last year, I just kind of got this wild hair to create my own race. And so I'm on the board of a nonprofit called Hydrating Humanity. And so they dig clean water wells in East Africa. And so I was just, my MO was like COVID, it's like everybody's inside. Why? We can still do something, right? And so I ran to raise awareness for Hydrating Humanity. We ended up raising enough money to dig 2 clean water wells in East Africa for schools, which is like providing thousands of people clean water, and they're for life, which is awesome. So I ran 100 miles in 24 hours and 40 minutes. And so that was really cool. And look, we grow up and we hear things and people tell us things and they're not true. And so I just think that we are capable of so much more than we give ourselves credit for. I call it, we have a smart, dumb brain. Okay. So it's smart in that it keeps us alive, and that it creates shortcuts for us so that it didn't have to spend energy on other things, but often it sabotages what we can really do. Right. Think about it, running 100 miles, my brain the whole time is like, you're an idiot. You're going to hurt yourself. Why are you doing this? But even before that, when people would hear that I was doing this, they'd be like, why you're going to hurt yourself? That is so dangerous. And I'm like, what is more dangerous? Sitting on your lazy boy every night, eating a gallon of ice cream, or running 100 miles, and then you get into ridiculous arguments with people like that, it's like, and so I don't know, a part of me just always wants to find out what I'm made of, what I'm capable of, and want to do something different. And so, I've been actually hampered here lately because of some injuries that I'm dealing with. I have to have hip surgery. So I haven't run an ultra in a while, but I hope to get back to it soon.
Speaking of that positive and negative self-talk, what kind of mindset do you think that ultra runners and midfielders and potentially football players have that combines their love of their sport with extreme distances?
I think that we ask everybody this one question, and I'd love to ask you, what percentage, Julia, of life and sport stems from the mind? There's no right or wrong answer.
All of it.
All of it. It's a big number, right?
Right.
Yeah. And I think that that's so true. And oftentimes the greatest battle in life is right here between our ears, right? And so I love this quote, but it's something like this. It's like, the biggest mistake we can make in life is listening to ourselves as opposed to talking to ourselves. And so we always are talking to ourselves. We always are telling our story. And the greatest story we're telling is the one that we tell ourselves. And so a lot of the ultra running fits into what I do now with soccer resilience and even as a pro athlete. But I mean, you just understand your mind drives so much of things, right? And so it's easy to, again, we have a smart, dumb brain. You can convince yourselves of things that aren't true. So yeah, I mean, the mindset is, you push past your comfort zone. Yeah, it's, I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. I mean, it's just like who I am, like I working out for me is like breathing. Like I need it. I have to do it. It's really how I deal with life. It's my sanity. And so, I mean, there's a lot of studies around like what exercise does for you, right? I mean, everything from physical to psychological. And so that's it for me. I find, when you're hurting and you don't think you can, you're at 50 miles and you're like, holy freaking cow, I've got to go 50 more miles. All the worries, all the stress that you have in life are gone. You're just present. You're in the moment. And yes, it's a little bit painful, but you realize that you can get through that stuff if you keep pushing on. I mean, I think it's such a metaphor for life. Like ultras are life. Life is an ultra, right? Like sometimes things are good and sometimes they suck. They really suck. Sometimes it's storming and it's muddy and you're climbing up a mountain. And other times it's sunny and you're trotting down a hill. You know what I mean? Like, and so, yeah, it gives you confidence. It gives you, it helps prepare you for life. I mean, so yeah, I'm rambling there, but.
I was just going to let you talk for as long as you wanted to. And then once you got out of Wake Forest and you came to the Major League Soccer system, what was that process like going from collegiate to professional soccer?
Yeah, well, I'll go back really quick just to the ultra thing. I think it says a lot about an individual. It's actually why I put ultra running on my LinkedIn profile, because I think it says a lot about me. And I think too, like it's a little bit like it says you're able to, commit, you're disciplined, you're able to sacrifice for a longer term goal, you're able to, deal with a lot of hurt and pain. And I mean, I think it says a lot about your mindset, you know what I mean? And I think a lot of people would be surprised of the individuals that are running these ultras. Like I remember, so this is a really cool story, but I was doing an interview with the Winston-Salem Journal, talking about my ultra and what was coming up and stuff. And the reporter goes, "Hey, did you read my article last week?" And I go, "No, tell me about it." And he goes, "It was a 78-year-old man. And I was doing an article on him. He's done over 200 ultra marathons and he still runs to this day 100-mile races and 24-hour races. 78. Yeah. We don't know how amazing that is. Like I'm 38. Right. And so with each year, I think I will appreciate what that guy said and what that guy does more and more. And now look, he's probably a little bit of an anomaly. I don't think that like everyone can do that. And he's obviously graced without being injured and stuff, but like oftentimes we just hear things and believe them without like trying to figure them out ourselves. Right. Like, is it really bad for you to run ultras? I don't know. Right. But like, we're all dying. We're all going to die. Like my knees are going to go bad one day. So I just have this philosophy that I want to live life. I really want to live life. And living life to me is, I think that the battle is like, so if I don't make sense, my wife says I don't sometimes because I jump all over the place. So just tell me to like backtrack. But
Yeah, you're good.
The greatest thing that soccer ever gave me was it took me all the way around the world. Right? Like, so I've played in the slums of Africa. I've played in prisons in Chile. I've played in the bush of Congo, right? Like all over. And so I've seen like what real poverty is but I've also seen how a lot of times those people are way happier than we are. Right. And so I think especially in America, but as human beings in general, we seek comfort. We want comfort. And I just think comfort is a killer of all things good. It really is. Like it is a killer. It's a killer of your health. It's a killer of your relationships. It's a killer of life. And so, yeah, sometimes we need to seek out discomfort. And Dean Karnassus, he's one of the ultra runners he's got a bunch of books, and he says most Americans, and so this is not saying that people that are dealing with real pain, like the loss of a loved one or, something along those lines, but most Americans need more pain in their life. And so what he's saying is most Americans need more pain. They need to get up and they need to do things a little more painful, right? Maybe sacrifice for their health, for other people, whatever it is, so yeah. And the other question you asked, I know I went back to the ultras, but what was the question? Oh, going from Wake to the pros?
Yeah.
That was really hard, really hard. So Wake was such a family. It was a family environment. I love those guys. I went to the New England Revolution. I was drafted 5th overall, and I was in Boston. And so that was a little different, right? A little bit different. And there were some very big personalities on the team that I did not gel with. And I think that was really hard for me, adjusting. I also love Jesus. And so my junior year of college was when I started following Jesus, like really started following him. And so when I got drafted, I knew that was my platform to honor him, glorify him, and to love on other people as well, right? And so but Boston wasn't as receptive to it as maybe North Carolina would be or the South would be. And so it was really challenging, right? Like I was tested, and those tests were good. And that's usually what God does is he takes your brokenness and turns them into blessings, right? And turns them into lessons for you to learn. But it was just difficult. It was hard. I was trying to figure out who I was. It was a different environment. I was kind of the top dog because I was drafted 5th overall and they were big. And I had a really good first season, really good first season. Won the US Open Cup, first trophy in the team's history. We made it to the finals. The MLS Cup ended up losing, unfortunately, but my sophomore season was really rough. I dealt with an injury in my heel that I didn't really understand what it was. Nobody could figure it out. It was like a bone spur. It just kind of hampered me. And then I don't know. I don't know what it was. I just could never kind of get my footing in New England. So I ended up getting traded 3 years after that, and playing in Colorado. So the transition was very difficult, very difficult. I mean, you're talking about going from, still in college, it's still fun, right? It's still like, this is awesome. This is like, it's like the greatest, because it's all your friends, and you're competing for something together. And when you go to the pros, it's a different animal. It's a very different animal. I mean, there's guys on your team that you can't speak the same language with, guys are getting traded all the time. New guys are coming in. You're fighting for your job every single day. It's a business. At the end of the day, it is a business. And so that was hard, very hard.
Why do you think that it was so hard? Was it one of those specific factors that you just listed, or was it just a combination of all of them?
It's probably all of them. Definitely all of them. Yeah, combined. Yeah, for sure. It's just different, I mean, it's a business at the end of the day. I think that's probably the biggest one, is that like, it's a business. You got to compete. It's about performance, and yeah.
So when did you start to feel like a commodity instead of a member of the team?
I don't know. I think about this all the time. I really do. I think that it was like, I was, for the first time, I think, like, not an underdog. I was the top pick. And so there certainly is more pressure in the pro level. Like, there's fans and they say things, and, very competitive. So what was the question? When did I realize it?
Yeah, when did you realize that you were a commodity instead of a member of the team?
Um, I don't know. Maybe it's so hard when you're in it, right? You're just trying to figure it out. It's so new. You're trying to adapt, trying to make friends. You're still trying to figure out who you are. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I did during the time. I don't know if I did during the process. I don't know if you would have asked me my rookie year, was the transition hard? I probably would have said, no, it wasn't too bad, I think, that's one of the blessings of getting a little bit older. You can hopefully make sense of it and try to make sense of it. And that's something I try to do. But sometimes I don't know if I'm right. I don't know if I'm actually putting the right, explanations to the events. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
Well, then you went to the Rapids in 2010 and you won a cup with them.
Yep, I
So
did.
that was, I mean, it sounded like you kind of hit a slump at the end of your time with New England, and then you were traded to Colorado, and then suddenly, are you back? I mean, what was that process like?
um, no, I don't know if I was ever, I think what every athlete or every human being, I think one of the greatest challenges in life is to be who you are, is like really truly be who you are and be okay with it, right? And love yourself for it. And so, I don't know. I think that obviously I was traded at a great time because we won the MLS Cup. Like that's a dream come true, right? Um, but the margin of the differences, the margin between you and your teammates is extremely small. Like I learned from a very young age that the easiest way to get ahead of someone is to outwork them. Outwork them. That was my MO. Like I'm gonna be fitter than you. I'm gonna be stronger than you. I'm gonna kick your ass. That's what I'm gonna do. And so when you get to the pro level, everyone is fit, everyone is smart, everyone is good. And so really it comes down to what's between your ears. And I struggled. I really, really struggled. And so, I played 9 years professionally. I am just now getting to the point where, and it depends what day you ask me, like, but for the majority of my retirement, I've looked back at my career as a failure. I really have, because I don't think that I know for certain I didn't reach my potential. I think my mind got in the way. I really struggled when I was in Colorado, actually. Depression, anxiety, eating disorder, even suicide ideation, and all of this centered around not starting. That was it for me. I was not starting. I mean, I played every game I dressed for, and I was never really hurt, so I dressed for every game. So if I didn't start, I came off the bench, but I just couldn't take it. It freaking crushed me. It freaking crushed me. And so, it. I mean, how do you describe it? Like it was just. I think the easiest way to describe it is it's a freaking mind F. It is a mind F. Like it is. I mean, again, just picture like an environment where there's 28 guys on the team. Some guys get cut at the end of practice. They bring in new guys all the time. They're trying them out. They trade people. They bring in other new people. Like it's a different environment, right? And you have to go out and you have to compete every day. And it's hard. It's freaking hard, And so, obviously it's like I was saying earlier with like life and ultra marathons, it's a journey. You go through ups and downs. And it wasn't all a struggle. Like there were obviously some really good times I had, and there were some times where I felt like I was playing really good soccer. But I think the biggest thing for me is that I became an athlete that focused on not making mistakes. And when you do that, you lose. Life, sport is about taking risks. It's about having courage. It's about believing in yourself. It's about loving yourself. And so these are things that I'm trying to do now. And I'm realizing that, like, so if I could go back, do I wish I started more and won more games? Yes, absolutely. But I wish more than anything I could go back and focus on the relationships of my teammates, my coaches. At the end of the day, you realize all the shiny stuff fades. Like I have an MLS Cup ring and I have a lot of trophies, but like when I'm on my deathbed, I'm going to ask to see people. People's what it's about. Like I honestly, I say this all the time, but I wish I could go back for a day and be a pro and either sit on the bench or be in the stands. And why would I want to do that? Because I would truly want to cheer for my team from that perspective, because I never did. The guy that played in front of me, if he scored, that was not good for me. And I didn't like it. It pissed me off. I say this too. I wanted the guy in front of me to break his back. I did. Not really, but kind of. I did. Like, oh, I'm so sorry you're hurt. Now my turn, like I lived and died by soccer. And I don't know. I don't think that's healthy. I think that it's kind of a myth that like you have to be all in on one thing, but I think balance creates health. My identity was completely in soccer. For 31 years of my life, I was Wells Thompson, the soccer player. And so when your identity is in your performance, if you have a bad performance, you don't feel good, and when you have a good performance, you feel good, but that's so short-lived because every day is a new performance, right? And so learning how to separate that, that's what I always tell kids that are playing to, read, learn about your interests, figure out what you like outside of your sport. And so I remember hearing these things from kids that come like, why do I need to focus on my books? I just want to play soccer, and most of us, all of us will be our people first and athletes second, but we'll spend the majority of our lives without playing a sport, right? Like versus God willing, right? Versus we're not going to play. I mean, everybody retires, and it's a young man's game. So it's getting more and more of a young man's game. So it's crucial that you learn who you are and understand what you like and don't like and those sorts of things. So you're ready to tackle the next life.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to talk more about the depression episode that you were going through. Was it attributed to burnout? Was it attributed to just not, I guess, an underwhelming experience from your perspective that you were putting out? I mean, how did that manifest?
Yeah, I think that I became very unhealthy in the way that I was living. Like I was the fittest guy on the team for sure. But again, remember if you remember me talking about like my MO was to work harder than people. And so what we do as humans, we revert to what we're good at when things aren't going well. So what did I do when things were going well? I doubled down on my fitness. I doubled down on my work. And so essentially I was overworking myself. I wasn't eating enough good food because I was trying to stay lean. And I've always somewhat had a rough relationship with food. It's way better now. And I think that's probably because I'm not playing and my livelihood doesn't depend on my body. But I think that's part of it. I mean, I think that we are, I attribute all of it to my thought life. Like if I didn't start or had a bad practice, I fixated on it. I ruminated on it. I couldn't get it out of my head. And I just became obsessed with it. Like all I cared about was just starting, right? I just wanted to start. I wanted to play. I want to play every minute. And I wanted to prove people wrong. And I wanted to like do well. I wanted people to see me on TV and this sorts of things. So again, I'm not a doctor and I don't know if I'm putting the right explanations to what happened to this. I just know that like, I didn't even get help during this time. Like I didn't go see anybody. So I should have. I wish I did. The one regret, like if I could go back and change one thing about my career, it would be to see a sports psychologist, because man, I was screwed up and I needed help and I didn't know how to do that. And so as a kind of a new believer, as a follower of Jesus, like I thought kind of like I just needed my own faith. I just needed faith. And so, I didn't get help. And thankfully there's a lot more awareness around these sorts of things these days, right? Which is what I'm passionate about, turning my pain into purpose and trying to help people in that area. But yeah, I mean, I think it was a culmination of things. I wasn't performing well. I was struggling. Yeah.
Was there someone on staff that could have helped you had you wanted to reach out? Or how were similar situations handled?
No, there's not. I mean, so no team I was on had a sports psychologist or mental coach on the team. When I was in Colorado, though, for Gary Smith for 2 years, he had a relationship with a sports psychologist and he gave us one free session. So I went because it was free and I didn't go back because I had to pay for it. And I'm an idiot, right? It's like, oh my God, this is your career. This is your livelihood. Why won't you invest in something like this? So there's still a lot of stigma around it, misconceptions, and the majority of, from my knowledge, the majority of MLS teams well, actually, that's not true. A couple of NWSL teams have sports psychologists on staff, people to address, mental needs, but it's hard. I didn't know at the time what I was really going through. I mean, for the most part, I'm a very happy, positive person. And I thought I could kind of get through it.
At what point did you realize that it was going to be difficult getting through it by yourself?
I didn't. Like I didn't. When I was traded from Colorado to Chicago, and I had the worst year in my career, and I was going to retire. I wanted to get away from the game. I was actually going to become a chicken farmer in Eastern North Carolina. And that sounded awesome. I know it did to me at the time. Thank God I didn't do it because it sounds miserable. But God called me back and I went to play for a team in Charlotte called the Charlotte Eagles. It was a Christian soccer team. And so I fell back in love with the game. And God was doing a lot of work in me, right? And helping me try to find my identity outside of the sport and those sorts of things. And so my family was in Raleigh and I was commuting back and forth a lot. And after that season, the team they changed names and kind of ownership and stuff. And I came back to Raleigh because that's where my wife was. She has her own business. And I wanted to play. I wanted to play for like 5-6 years. I wanted to get involved in the community, but it just didn't work out. The team kind of screwed me over, got injured. So when I retired at the end of that year, it was really difficult because I didn't do it on my own terms. I had to hire a lawyer, workers' comp stuff. They treated me like crap. And then I had to have 3 surgeries. And so again, I just woke up one day and I wasn't Wells Thompson, the soccer player anymore. And I didn't know who I was. And so I'm still trying to figure that out. I mean, I think Lindsey Vonn says it best. Retiring from pro sports is like a death, and a lot of people mourn it for the rest of their lives. And I think I will, but I'm getting to a point where, I mean, I'm so blessed. I'm thankful that I was able to do what I did. I mean, 1% of people do it, right? And so, but a lot of people dream to do it. So I'm trying to switch my perspective on that. And yeah, so I forget what the original question was.
We're just gonna move on by you answered it. And I'm gonna pose, what was the difference between playing for an MLS team and a USL team?
There's a lot of them. The way you're taken care of. So that's everything from like pay to travel to gear to fans to facilities. It's everything. It's very different. So this was 2014 and 15. So a little while back, I'm sure things are a little bit better, but the USL I think they just formed their first players association, which is good, which means that they'll be able to fight for players' rights and those sorts of things. And which there wasn't when I was there. So
How have you seen the influence of soccer change in America over the past decade?
Oh, it's massive. It's freaking awesome. Like Atlanta getting more fans than the Falcons. It's huge. I mean, so I was in 2006, still somewhat early days MLS, right? David Beckham came over for 2007. David Beckham came over in 2008. Like that was huge. The league just keeps getting better and better every year. It's awesome, really awesome. I'm actually really excited about women's soccer. I think women's soccer is MLS 2002 right now, and I think they're going to be huge. So yeah, I think it's just gonna get better and better. I'm really excited to see it continue to grow.
Yeah, I love soccer, and I've been I've been kind of following both sides of it. So I was really excited to have you on and like hear your story.
Yeah.
Well, let's move forward in time on that timeline. A couple years, you have left professional soccer and you have founded Soccer Resilience.
Mhm.
How did you get your group of three founders? How did you meet? How did you decide on this concept? And what was the initial hope of this brand?
I didn't. You never tell God never. I never wanted to get back into soccer ever. Never, ever. When I retired, I bounced around trying to find things to do, coached a little bit, which is what most pros kind of resort to. I was like, I got to figure out who I am. So I got a real world job, and I was in sales, and I was traveling. I was starting to have kids, and I'm a little bit of a go big or go home type guy. Like I don't want to do something. I'm not going to do something that I don't like. I'm very purpose driven as well. And so it was 3 years into this business. I had my third kid. My wife owns her business, and it was just getting too much. And I was like, I don't want to sacrifice my family for a job. And that's what most people do, right? They're like, I want to make more money and those sorts of things, and their kids are miserable. And anyway, I just wanted to be a present father. That like I knew I was created to be a father. Like it's the greatest, hardest thing in the world, but I wanted to be there for my kids. I had a great example of a dad, and I wanted to be there like he was there for me. And so I started learning about the greatest transition of wealth in the history of the world, $17 trillion changing hands from generations, baby boomers retiring. And I was like, I'm going to go buy a business because that sounds really easy, right? It's hard. And I didn't know what I was doing, but I wanted to operate on faith because I stay often. It doesn't matter how much money I have in my bank account. I'm a rich white dude in America. Like my network, like when was the last time I had to trust God for anything? Like I know I will never have a day in my life where I don't have a roof over my head and food on my table. And like I shouldn't be playing safe, right? And I wish I didn't play soccer safe, but I don't want to play life safe now. And you look at, they do study after study of people on their deathbed, right? And what did they ask them? What did you regret in life? And it's not regrets of action, it's regret of inaction. And so I wanted to take a risk and a leap. And thank God I had a wife that was able to let me do that, because it hasn't been easy. And so I got connected to Dr. Brad Miller, who's the original founder of Soccer Resilience. He played at Wake Forest, actually grew up like 3 minutes from me, but he's older than me, so we never knew each other. He just reached out and said, hey man, I'd love to talk to you about what I'm doing. Are you interested? It's funny to hear him tell the story because he thought I'd never get back to him. Like I was this big time pro athlete and just had to, it's kind of like too good to get back to him. And I got back to him, and we hit it off. And a lot of what he's doing, again, I'm turning my pain into purpose, and it all kind of fits. Like if you could create a job for Wells Thompson, that just fit everything about him, his background, his interests, his passions, right? What he's created to do, it would be the CEO of Soccer Resilience. It's taking my whole life, my experiences of being a dumbass kid and losing focus and really understanding that we as humans, I believe, don't go through things just for ourselves, but for other people. And so since I've gone through myself, I'm very open. That's why I say I'm an open book. I talk about anything. Like when I say I'm a Christian, I say I'm a jacked up human being. I need help every single day. And that's what I'm doing when I say I'm a Christian. I raise my hand and saying, I can't do it by myself. I'm screwed up. I need a God that is way better than me and greater than me and more powerful than me to help me be a little bit kinder, to give back, right? And not be selfish and not be judgmental and condescending. And so, yeah, I mean, I didn't think that this would really turn into much. I didn't know what it would turn into. I didn't know that like COVID would come. I didn't know like the Olympics and some biles and mental health, but I knew that I had such a passion. So I was on a podcast with a friend of mine, Jonathan Van Horn, and the whole premise of the podcast was talking about pros transitioning to life after sport, because it is like a death, and it is one of the hardest things that all pros go through. And I struggled through it. And so I was eager to like share my experiences and learn from others and those sorts of things. And so I knew I just had a real passion to help people and kids, and had to do with soccer. And so it's been really awesome. Brad and me formed the company. Then we brought Matt Spear on, who was Brad's like youth teammate, friend. You know, done really well in the sport, played at Davidson, coached at Davidson for 20 years, was president of pro team. And then we brought Jessica McDonald on. And a lot of that was, we have a huge heart for diversity. We want a company that is diverse, because we see value in it. I feel like the Lord created that for a reason, right? And so me, Matt, and Brad were like, we're three white dudes. We don't know what it's like to not be white and not be male. And we just kind of, what I felt was got divinely connected to Jessica McDonald and gave her a quarter of our company, which I tell everyone that because I'm really proud of it. We don't just want her to have a quarter of the company. We know we need it to run the type of business that we want to run, but it was very important for us to do that so that she had equal say and voice in our company. And so that's been cool. I mean, I've never thought about women's rights in my life until I met Jessica McDonald, and she's changed my life. She really has. I mean, she's a symbol of hope, of like resilience and perseverance. And I don't know if you know her story, but it's unbelievable. She's the first mom in NWSL, and she used to take her son and put him on the sidelines in a stroller with a bottle of milk in his mouth. I worked second jobs at Amazon because she couldn't pay for daycare, and teams didn't pay for her. I'm like, holy freaking cow, I would have given up, you know? So, and then we've continued to build out our team with our ambassador team. And that's really just people that believe in our mission and vision of a lot of former pros like me. They're like, gosh, I wish I could go, focus on the mental side of the game. Right. And coaches. And so, yeah, we're building something in a way that no one's really done it before. And I didn't plan it. I don't know what I'm doing. I spend all my day trying to get my head out of my butt, seriously, because it is hard. And so I've watched my wife, she and her twin sister own a business, and it's a marketing agency, and they're in their 10th year, and they do over $1 million in revenue, which only 4% of businesses in the US do that. And I've literally watched them for 10 years thinking, that is so easy. Why are they whining about that? Like, I would do it this way, right? And then it is the hardest thing in the world. Like, it is so hard. I don't know what I'm doing, and, but again, it's not playing it safe. I'm learning, I'm growing. Soccer resilience has changed my life. 4 months ago, I actually had to go see a doctor and get put on Zoloft. I'm actually afraid people are going to be like, well, stop pushing Zoloft on me, man. Like, because it's changed my life. My wife came to me one day and was like, I hadn't had a paycheck in 2 years. I got 3 kids, like freaking stress was adding up. I mean, it's just, anyway, life is stressful. And she's like, yeah, go see somebody. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I do. And so I went and I got put on Zoloft. It literally changed my life. It literally changed my life. And so, yeah, you don't know what is going to be thrown your way in life. It's like, you can prepare, and there's things that you can do, but at the end of the day, you don't know what's going to happen.
What does the term resiliency mean to you?
Yeah, it means, the first thing that came to mind was you fall down 7 times, you get up 8. Like, it's just getting back up. It's pushing through. I mean, the official term is like bouncing back, right? Like bouncing back from adversity. And it's an important tool for life, because that's the one constant of life is crap being thrown your way all the time, right? It is all the time. And usually the person that can learn how to deal with it a little bit better is the one that enjoys life more, accomplishes more things, has more fulfillment and joy. So.
And then working off of that, you have not mentioned it this episode, but I have had in the past, a lot of guests have come on and have talked about mental toughness. Do you like the term? And how do you define it?
You know, I'm so like, I get squeamish actually when you talk about like, you know, like train your brain or like mental toughness or like, it's just weird to me a little bit. Like, you know, and I think that's somewhat why it's not accepted as much. But I don't know, it's semantics, right? We can get on like mental fitness, mental toughness. We as Soccer Resilience like to use mental fitness, which is kind of this movement. Kara Bradley is one of kind of the thought leaders in this. She's amazing. She's like the 12th greatest, top 12 greatest mindfulness teachers in the world or something like that. Anyway, mental fitness is like, what I love about it is it says that our mind and our body, we live in they're symbiotic relationships, means that like my mind influences my body, but my body also influences my mind, right? And so I like to think of it as like, you don't just take your brain out. Like, I'm going to go train my brain. I'm going to take my brain out and go train it, right? Like you go together, you're all there and you train it. And so I like mental fitness, and that's just that, you know, there's things that you can do to prepare you for the crap that life's going to throw at you. Yeah.
And then if I was a coach and I had a group of, say, youth athletes, soccer specifically, and I wanted to employ soccer resilience,
Yeah.
how would you approach that team meeting?
So these are youth.
Yeah, these are youth athletes.
What age?
Let's say 12 to 14.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I think that sport, it's the old Nelson Mandela quote. Okay, do you know that quote?
No.
I'm going to butcher it, but basically he says sport has the power to change the world. It unites people in a way that nothing else does. It creates bridges and it tears down walls and it creates unity amongst people, right? It laughs in the face of discrimination. I truly believe that. I think sport is the greatest opportunity to change the world. I really do. And most kids want to be at sport. They want to be at practice. They want to be at a game. They don't necessarily want to be at school, right? But schools, especially during COVID, have ramped up their resilience programs. They're teaching kids mindfulness, right? And mental toughness and mental fitness and all those things. And our really challenge and plea and call to youth clubs is, what are you doing? Why aren't you doing this? Because at the end of the day, 95% of the kids that you coach will not even play in college. 95% of youth sports don't even play in college. 1% play professionally. So really, what are we doing with the 95%? If everything's about winning, like, when was the last time you heard a parent walk around and be like, my 10-year-old son 12 years ago won the Charleston Battery U8 tournament and he was the MVP? Like, that is awesome and celebrated, but who cares? Really, who cares? Sport is the greatest opportunity to change the world. And I think these youth clubs have such an opportunity. They really do. And so how do they engage? I think a part of it is, if it's not soccer resilience, you got to start somewhere, right? So find someone that knows something about this and talk to them about it. And do the homework, right? Like, it's not enough to just say, I don't know where to start. And we get that a lot. Like, we can't just throw stuff at them. I'm like, well, you got to start somewhere, you know, like you got to start having the conversation. And that's a lot of this, is normalizing the conversation, right? Like, it's actually really normal to take Zoloft. I bet a lot of people do it. And I'm not saying that medicine, like, we should all just revert to medicine if we're struggling, like, seek help, for sure, the right kind of help. But start somewhere. And so how we would incorporate, we really are passionate about influencing three audiences: players, parents, and coaches. And we tend to focus on the players a lot. But in my opinion, coaches change culture. So really, a lot of it's about the education, giving these coaches the tools, the verbiage, the language, the how to help their players, to help the parents, right? Giving parents perspective, right? Because let's be honest, as a parent, you don't often have that because you're so focused on your son, and everybody wants their son to be the next Messi or Ronaldo or Pele, right? Or Jessica McDonald, or see how I did there, Mia Hamm, or Kara Recaro, you know, all those awesome female athletes, female pro soccer players. And it's easy just to lose focus, you know? So we're really just, you know, we see youth clubs as our target audience. And so we basically have three products, right? We have individual sessions where you can get on with one of us and we can work with you. We have group sessions where we work with teams or we work with groups. So say it's high school boys or high school girls. And we try to, as much as possible, to put girls with girls and guys with guys. It doesn't mean we don't mix. We do at times, but we try to as much as possible. Educate the coaches. Right. And so we won't work with a club unless we deal with the coaches and the directors and the staff first, because we need to get their buy-in. Because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are going to influence people the most. We just have too many kids that, and you think about this, a lot of youth sports is volunteer. So we give oftentimes inexperienced and uneducated coaches access to young, impressionable minds. And so, a huge part of his education. I mean, U.S. soccer coaches, U.S. soccer's 4 pillars are technical, tactical, physical, and psychosocial. Which one do you think gets cut out the most?
Psychosocial.
Yeah, for sure. And so what's a great coach? Is a great coach someone that is a master at X's and O's, but it's a prick and like no one wants to play for him? No, it's not a great coach. A great coach is Ted Lasso, right? Like, oh my God, how many times have you heard Ted Lasso, right? A great coach is someone who loves his players and especially youth, right? It's like your kid, most of them aren't going to play in college. Most of them, none of them are probably going to go pro. And I'm not saying don't dream and go for those things. You should, you absolutely should. But it's keeping perspective. And a lot of kids, too many kids walk around for their whole life, for the rest of their lives with scars from coaches that are just worried about winning. Right. So parents, and it's not just coaches. We don't bash coaches, right? Like players and parents and the media and leaders, we have to give coaches permission to be about more than winning, which is hard, right? Because that means you're probably going to have to lose games to teach kids how to play the right way, right? And so that's hard. It is hard.
When you're working with youth athletes specifically, at what age do you transition from learning life skills like communication and here's how you kick a soccer ball and transition that into things like mindfulness, meditation,
Yeah.
self-talk? I mean, what age does that switch?
I'm not sure that so like we really say that 12 and up is really who we're focused on working with. But I'll get to our third product, which is we have an online academy and it's segmented for players, parents, and coaches. But that doesn't mean like a 10-year-old can't. And that's why we encourage clubs to like provide this stuff for their families, because a dad can help like my son, he's 7. You know what he told me the other day? He said, I don't like myself, Dad. And I was like, oh my, I was like, I want to be you. Like, you are amazing. And he's like the nicest, like most outgoing, loving kid. And I was like, where did he get that? Right. So I have this affirmation sheet. I am, and you have a little blank. I am. And I was like, let's go fill that out, man. And I was like, and we actually didn't end up doing that at that time, but like, you know, and I still have it at home and I keep reminding him we need to fill it out. But like, you know, you can start with 7, 8, 6, right? I mean, as long as your kids are willing. I mean, and with mindfulness, I don't think there's an age. I mean, I think it's something hopefully that you don't just get it, right? Like, I think I know what you're trying to ask, but you don't just get it. Like, I don't have it. I am not like a mental ninja. I'm not. Like, we as humans will do this for the rest of our lives. We'll be building resilience and we'll be learning and we'll be growing. I think that's part of it. It's like, you never stop learning, keep growing. And, but a lot of it's just understanding how our brains work, right? Like we have a negativity bias. So we're always thinking negatively, and that's important. Why is that important? Because it keeps us alive, right? But sometimes it sabotages us from becoming all that we were created to do. So we've got to figure that out. And a lot of it's awareness, right? And so, yeah, COVID's horrible for a million reasons, but one of the good things that's come out is increased awareness around mental health and slowing down and priorities. And I mean, all this stuff's going to fade, right? Like no one's going to, I mean, it's so funny when I like go speak to kids and they don't know who I am, I'll be like, so I was in Colorado speaking like a month ago, 2 months ago, and I was speaking at schools. And so I won an MLS Cup in Colorado, played there for 3 years. And so my very first question was, does anybody know who I am? And one person from each team knew who I was. One person, but I lived my life like I gave everything to that. Oh my gosh, everything. And you just realize that like, that's not important, right? There's so many more important things. So yeah, I mean, I think you're always learning life skills. Like I'm learning to communicate with my kids. I'm learning to communicate when I'm upset. Like, and I'm seeing, like, I'm discovering these things and I'm relating them back to as a pro. Like I got a lot of red and yellow cards. And you know what? I don't regulate my emotions well when I get really upset. I still to this day don't, and I'm working on it. But I think that one thing we do really well is we're honest and we're vulnerable and we're real. Like we don't go in there pretending like we know all the answers. And I really think that's led from that's Dr. Brad's MO. Like, you know, we all genuinely care about people and we all want to help people. And so I think that comes across, and I think people see that. And when people hear pro athletes like myself, former pro athletes, you know, Michael Phelps, Simone Biles coming out and saying these things, they're like, wow, them too? You know, I don't know why people think like pro athletes are robots. Like the pressure as a pro is a million times greater than anything else, right? Not anything else, but like playing in college or playing in youth, like it's just massive. And it can be hard to deal with at times. So yeah, I don't think there's necessarily a switch. I think it's really just dependent on hopefully you have it yourself, right? Because and you're instilling in these things in the kids, because more is caught than taught, right? Like I want to sit my 4-year-old son down and have like a lecture with him, and he's like, I want to go outside, Dad. Like he just doesn't get it, you know what I mean? I'm like, but that's me trying to like, I want to communicate this to him, but he's seeing everything I do, and he's seeing me get stressed out and anxious over work and stuff. And so I think the first thing you have to do, it's an inside job. You got to figure it out yourself, and you got to practice it yourself, and hopefully they catch on to it, you know?
And then the last question, if you could go back, how would you retrain your mentals?
I would get a professional. I would seek help. I would, how would I do it? Like as a pro?
Throughout the entire process.
Well, I hopefully that, I mean, I don't know if I would have made the assessment that I needed help as like a youth, you know, like, but obviously I did, because I made a lot of dumb choices, right? And but as a pro, I would have paid somebody. I would have invested in my career. I would have gotten help. You know, it's the older I get, the more ultra marathons I run, the more kids I have, the more I really truly believe that life is lived between the years. It's truly 10% what happens to you and 90% how you respond to it, you know? So yeah.
Well, that is the last question I had to ask you. Is there anything else that about your story that you think that I missed, or anything that you would like to plug? I mean, I'll put links to all of the Soccer Resilience website links
Yeah.
in the show notes of this episode when it
Cool.
comes out. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about before
Um,
we
yeah,
part
there
for
is
today?
actually.
Okay.
So because I left soccer doesn't mean that I left my problems, but I thought it was soccer, right? But it's really me. It's me, right? And so I'm still trying to work on these things. I'm still trying to get help. I just celebrated my 38th birthday and Thanksgiving Day, and I asked for a therapist for my birthday. So I'm currently looking to get help. And, it's really interesting when you think about that. Like it's so stigmatized and people are embarrassed by it, but like the number one advice you get as a business person or even as like a young person is to find a mentor. And that mentor is basically kind of a therapist. Like my wife's my therapist, my dog's my therapist. Like it's just semantics, but we all need help. And I think that it's, when we're really honest with it and we look for people that know how to give the help and they're good people. And, but you got to find what works for you, right? Like, because I love affirmations and have a list on my bathroom mirror and read them every day, like that doesn't mean that you have to do that. It's just really discovering what works for you. And yeah.
Well, thank you so much for taking an hour's and change out of your day to talk to me.
You got it. It's such a blessing to meet you. Thank you so much for having me on.
Your episode will come out on the 15th. So in 2 days, I think.
Okay.
And then if you could just send me a picture either of you now or of you playing, something that I can use for social media. And
I will send you a picture of me now.
okay,
So
awesome.
we just did our mindset summit, and this was a big deal. No one knew this, but I told them when I gave my presentation, in all of the marketing materials for the mindset summit, I wasn't playing. And that was the very first time that I'd ever used something for like podcast, speaking, article that wasn't directly tied to me playing, because I want people to know that. I want people to know that I played. And so I think part of it is like, my identity is shifting. Like I don't see so much of myself in that now. And I'm excited about it. And that's really cool because soccer resilience is the first thing outside of playing soccer that it actually gets me excited. Like I love what I'm doing. It's hard, but I love it. And hard things are great things. They really are, because that's how we truly realize what we were made for and what we're made of, and the good in life, the good stuff's and the hard stuff. And we don't, but we don't always consciously understand that, right? It's kind of like we think that comfort and a really nice car and all that stuff is going to satisfy us, and it doesn't.
Wow. I'm really excited to edit this episode together.
Cool.
Thank you
Yeah,
for
you sound
spending time
good.
with me. I'll get back out to you once this episode is published, and I'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Julia. You have a blessed
Bye.
day.
You too. Have a
Thank
good
you.
day.
Bye.